the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book Grow Your Key Talent, no other than Miss Rebecca Morgan.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for having me on today.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Rebecca. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. So, I'm the author of 28 books, two of which have sold over 250,000 copies and have been translated into nine different languages. So, I am a keynote speaker and a management consultant and a trainer, seminar leader, and I travel around the world. I've spoken in 24 countries to talk about my books or whatever's interest to the client.
Miss Rebecca Morgan, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world and looking forward for more and more empowering books like this to come. So what inspired you to write Grow Your Key Talent?
I was asked to speak at the Singapore HR Summit, and they wanted me to talk about my philosophies and techniques for ensuring that people implement new ideas that they get from seminars or from speaking. And so I put together this book for that audience so that people could have something to take home and reference when they wanted to implement how to grow the people that they wanted to keep. They're high performers. So there's all sorts of there pieces on that are bite-sized pieces, sometimes 3 to 5 pages long, on ways to ensure that your people are learning and growing and staying with you, because one of the number one reasons people leave an organization is because they feel they aren't growing. So this enables the business owner or the manager or the C-suite person to have some tools to make sure that their people are growing and therefore staying.
So Miss Rebecca, how do you define key talent and why is it crucial for business success?
Well, key talent is anyone that would be greatly missed if they were to leave. That's why they're key. And they don't have to be a manager or C-suite. In fact, I work with a lot of high-tech companies since I'm in the middle of Silicon Valley, and some of those companies define key talent as patent holders or researchers that don't want to be in management, but they would really be missed. It would really be a hardship if they were to leave. So that's why I define them as key talent. And the reason that that's important to businesses, obviously, is they can they can innovate better when they have cutting edge or the smartest people working on their projects.
So, Miss Rebecca, what's the biggest misconception leaders have about developing star staff?
Ah, I would say the biggest misconception is that they just send them off to, say, a conference or even an internal training, and they expect that that's sufficient. Typically, when they get back, the boss says, "So, how was that conference or training session?" And the staff says, "It was good." And that's the end of the discussion. So, in the book and in my private consultations with my clients, I encourage them to be more involved and get more specifics before, during, and after any sort of development event. And I give them a checklist in the book on what they should ask their staff even before. So let's say, Daniel, you were with me, you were one of my people, and you wanted to go to a conference. And I said, well, great, that sounds good. Tell me, based on the agenda, what do you want to focus on? And what are you hoping to get out of those sessions or the people you meet in the halls? And I help them create a strategy before they even go to that, in this example, that conference. And I personally have really upped my game when I go to conferences. So I look at who's speaking, who's on the attendee list, and I reach out to those people ahead of time and I say, "May I buy you a cup of coffee at the conference, or have breakfast?" And then fill my schedule with these people that I think are going to help me grow my skills and talents or even my connections. But it's not just left to happenstance. It's strategic. So as your boss in this example, I would encourage you not only to look at the syllabus and the agenda and what's going to be covered and help you choose the sessions to go to that I think are going to help you grow the most, but I'm also helping you expand your knowledge base of people. So that would be before a conference, before an internal training. Again, I would look at the agenda. We would have a discussion about what you wanted to focus on. And then if it were more than just a one-time event and there was some um, maybe a couple days or weeks in between or even a month, we would meet and I would say, "So Daniel, what did you get out of the last session and what do you plan to implement?" And then after each session, even if it's just a one-off, I would say essentially, "What did you learn that you plan to implement here? How can I support you in that?" And then let's meet again in 2 weeks for 10 minutes and see how you're doing on an implementation, where you might be getting stuck, where you would like some new ideas, and how can I support you. So it's not just an event. Professional development is not just an event. It's a whole series, and the more the manager of the person gets involved, the more effective and the higher ROI that business or that manager is going to get from that person's professional development.
So, can you highlight a common mistake managers make when trying to retain top talent?
I think it's pretty much what we've just discussed. It's it's depending on other people to develop their staff totally, rather than looking at their role as having some sort of coaching or mentoring, as well as tapping other resources, content experts that the other person could utilize.
So, how do you balance developing individual talent while maintaining overall team performance?
Well, each individual has their own developmental needs and desires. So you want to make sure you're addressing those and encouraging them to go to the conferences, go to the seminars, etc., that will help them develop personally. And then in terms of the team, what I always encourage is once someone is back from a conference, say only one person from a department was allowed to go to a conference, they then prepare a short report, a 5 to 10 minute report of, here are the highlights. Here's what I learned that I think might be useful to you. So then they are helping develop their colleagues.
Hmm. Totally agree, Miss Rebecca, and very well said. Very well said. So, one of your essays talks about mentorship. How should business structure effective mentoring programs?
I worked with that one company to help them develop their mentor mentee situation, and they had a pool of people who were willing to mentor, and then they had a pool of people that wanted to be mentored. And instead of just automatically matching people, then the mentees could interview a couple of the mentors to see who might be a good fit. Um, if the manager is really good at mentoring, that's great. But my experience is almost none of them are. Almost none of them are good at mentoring at least their own people. Sometimes it's easier to mentor somebody else's folks. The other thing for the mentors, the biggest complaint I hear from the mentees is the mentors just babble. They just pontificate. They just think it's time. Their mentor time with the mentee is to tell their life story, and the mentors get almost nothing. The mentees get almost nothing out of that. So we did training with the mentors on how to be a good mentor. We trained the mentees on how to be good mentees, how to ask good questions, etc., how to follow up, how to report back. So it's not just, oh, hey, Daniel, you're available. I'll have you be my mentor. There needs to be more effort and thought put into it to be successful.
So, Miss Rebecca, in your experience, what role does emotional intelligence play in talent development?
I think I think it plays a critical role in all development, whether it's professional development or just personal development. That if we're not attuned to other people's needs and work to work to address those, then we're not going to be successful. When
So,
I started out, Daniel, we called it social intelligence, and
social.
I designed my major called social communication around social intelligence, but then it morphed over time into emotional intelligence.
It evolved.
It,
So, how do generational difference impact talent management strategies?
I'm not an expert on the different generations and their needs, etc. My, I mean, I because I have not studied this. When I hear people talk about it, it seems to me more age group specific. So people in their 20s are more apt to blah 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 blah. Obviously there's influence from society, and that some are digital natives and some aren't, and of course all of that plays in. But as I hear the issues, I think, well, yeah, when I was in my 20s, that's what I thought, or that's how I felt about things. When I was in my 30s, I felt that about things. So I think it goes back to your point about emotional intelligence. It's being conscious of what people want and how they like to be developed, and seeing if you can design interventions that address those.
So, Ms. Rebecca, what are the early warning signs that a valuable employee may be disengaging?
If they don't come forth with ideas, if they do the minimum to get by, they don't seem excited about any projects, they don't some people are introverts, and so they don't reach out to interact with other team members, and that's not a negative, that's just who they are. So we need to be conscious of different people's personal styles, and um, not not title them or not label them as disengaged. It's just that's their style, and part of that is being communicating with them individually and saying, how are you doing and what are you excited about, and is there something that's getting in the way of you feeling you can do your best here. Just being in conversation and listening, not trying to fix them or tell them how they should be feeling, or but really listening to what's going on. And you may hear that some of them have issues at home, or they have a challenge with a coworker. But if you don't ask, you're not going to know.
So, how do you suggest leaders handle underperformance in otherwise high potential staff?
I would have a conversation with them to see what's going on with them.
And what is the process, Ms. Rebecca?
I would call them into my office or have a conversation on Zoom, whatever is applicable, and say, hey, I've noticed you're not performing like you're used to. I'm used to you. Is there something going on that I should know about that is affecting your performance? And is there some way I can help? So let me give you an example, Danielle. During the pandemic, I
Yes.
interviewed a guy who had three kids at home, and he and his wife worked at home. This was when we were in lockdown, and they only had two devices in the house. I think they had two computers in the house. And yet there were five of them that needed to be online together because the three kids were doing homeschool and the two adults were doing their work. So the boss reached out to the guy and said, "Okay, what how are you doing? It seems like you're not producing what you usually produce." And the guy said he explained the situation, and the boss said, "Oh man, we've got three extra laptops here that we could loan you. That you could have to have the kids be on homeschool." So the point being that if the manager hadn't reached out and asked what was going on, and if the employee hadn't been comfortable sharing that, the boss would never have known that there was a solution that was easy, because the problem with his productivity was he needed a device, and he had to share his device among the whole family. Uh, and that was an easy solution. But if you don't ask, you don't ever know, and you don't know what you've got that could help increase the productivity.
Yes, ask and it will be given, people. So, Ms. Rebecca, what will be your short-term and long-term goals in writing as well as your profession?
I like to share information with anyone who wants to be better. So I keep writing books. I'm working on my 29th book right now, and I keep updating my seminar topics and my way that I deliver it. So now I help other people be able to deliver exciting, interactive virtual presentations, because we know that those are here to stay. And I continue to work with managers on how to be even better managers, both in person and virtually. So that's what I keep working toward.
Good luck to your goals, Ms. Rebecca, and looking forward for more and more empowering books like this. So, how can small businesses compete with large corporations in retaining key talent?
I Part of it is, what do you bring to the party that other people don't? So, for example, in the summer of 2020, I recruited 13 interns to work for me from all over the world, because it was all remote. And year to date, I've had about 175, 180 interns work for me. So over 5 years. And when some of them I interview, because there are other companies that are trying to recruit those same interns. And so when I interview them, I ask them what their goals are, like you just did me. And then I help them understand that by working with a boutique company like mine, they get a lot more of my attention and my mentoring. And they learn skills that they can apply to their schoolwork, or they can apply in other parts of their life. So they get a lot more one-on-one than they might if they were an intern at a big company. So the same philosophy for an employee. Like, what do you offer that's unique, that's would be a benefit to the right people? So some people want to work with big companies, and that's fine, and I understand that that has some cachet on your resume. And then some people want to be an entrepreneur someday. And in my case, so they want to understand more about what that is like to be self-employed. Um, so it's like, what do you bring that a bigger company wouldn't offer? And talk to that, and the right people will be drawn to working with you then.
So, what advice do you have for managers who are developing their first team of direct reports?
So I do work with those folks quite a bit. I think the key is for the manager to keep working on him or herself and their skills, and feeling comfortable enough to say, "Hey, I just learned this new thing, and I'm going to try it here. And I don't know if it's going to work or not. So you need to help me know if it's working or not. And if it's not working, help me figure out how we can tweak it, or if we need to just ditch it altogether." But being vulnerable, which is part of being creating an environment of psychological safety, which Google did research in 2017 and found that that was the number one key to team success was creating psychological safety. One component of that is vulnerability, being willing to admit when you were wrong, being willing to admit when you didn't know something, not feeling you had to be the font of all wisdom and information. And people are drawn to that. People are, you know, they really are attracted to a manager who doesn't have arrogance. They want confidence. They don't want arrogance. And psychological safety helps create that.
Thank you for your advice, Miss Rebecca, and I hope they will follow you. People listening to us or watching us, please follow Miss Rebecca because it will empower your business itself. So before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, in its fifth season. People, fifth season with Chef Alessandro, one of the specialty chef in one of five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are reading our letter senders all over the world. So please do listen Food 101 wherever you listen your podcast. So Miss Rebecca, if there's one mindset shift you hope readers make after reading this book, what would it be?
That the readers need to look at their own skill set and say, how can I be even better? What could I implement from this book, even if it's just one thing a week? What could I implement to make myself better?
Miss Rebecca Morgan, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world. And as I said, we are looking for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes, of course. Please do that. RebeccaMorgan.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Rebecca Morgan because if you support her, more and more and more empowering books to come. So, Miss Rebecca, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye bye, Daniel.
Modicon people, see you soon.